We begin in a London that feels both crowded and strangely stagnant. For Lionel Mortimer, life is a series of polite, penniless struggles. He is a gentleman by education and temperament, but he lacks the means to match his station, drifting through a world of social expectations that offer very little in the way of actual excitement. He is a man waiting for something to happen, though he probably doesn't know exactly what that something might look like. That something arrives in the form of a runaway carriage. In a moment of sudden, unscripted action, Lionel throws himself into the path of danger to save a beautiful woman, Beatrice Blair. This isn't just a chance encounter, it is the spark that ignites the entire engine of the story. Beatrice is not just any woman, she is a successful, luminous actress, and her world is far more complicated and dangerous than Lionel could have ever imagined. As Beatrice brings Lionel into her orbit, we learn that her life is a carefully constructed performance. She carries a heavy, traumatic history, including time spent as a prisoner in the Ottoman Empire. Currently, she is caught in a high-stakes diplomatic conspiracy involving a secret treaty and her husband, Lukos, who is in grave peril. Lionel finds himself transitioning from a man with no direction to an unofficial agent, a confidant navigating a web of espionage, stolen items, and complex social maneuvers. But the story isn't just about Lionel and Beatrice. As they move through this labyrinth of secrets, other lives are being transformed by the same currents of change. We meet Henry Brown, a man who has managed to find financial stability after years of working as a cab driver. He is a man of caution and thrift, someone who has built a life on predictability. However, he finds himself unexpectedly drawn into passion through his connection with Mizzy, a woman who has been causing quite a bit of chaos in Lionel's circle. Through Henry, we see how even the most settled lives can be disrupted by the sudden arrival of desire. Then there is Robert Hedderwick. Robert is a retired bank cashier, a man who describes himself as rusting. He has spent his life being submissive, living a quiet, controlled existence under the shadow of his domineering wife, Alicia. But as the chaos of the plot begins to swirl around the Arkwright estate, Robert finds a sudden, desperate surge of agency. In one of the more striking moments of the book, Robert uses the modern, disruptive power of an aeroplane to perform a dramatic bluff, using it as a tool to negotiate a newfound independence from the constraints of his marriage. Alongside Robert, we have Tony Wilde. Tony is the quintessential wealthy youth, a man suffering from a profound sense of ennui. He has everything, yet he feels nothing, and he is desperately seeking sensation to fill the void. He joins forces with Robert, and together they engage in a series of daring, almost absurd escapades. Midnight ambushes and theatrical confrontations with rioting mobs as they attempt to feel something real in a world that feels increasingly staged. All these disparate threads, the spy, the actress, the cab driver, the bored socialite, and the retiring clerk, eventually converge at a place called the Quiet House. This is the estate of Winifred Arkwright, Beatrice's twin sister. The house itself is a microcosm of the tension defining the era. Winifred is a principled, intellectual suffragette, a woman of intense conviction who stands in stark contrast to her sister's performative, theatrical lifestyle. The household is thick with secrets, the servants are strangely silent, and many of the characters are operating under aliases or for hidden motives. The tension reaches a breaking point during a chaotic midnight encounter at the estate. What was intended as a series of calculated moves turns into a ridiculous, sprawling mess. There is a botched ambush, characters are doused with water, and Lionel finds himself in the absurd position of having to capture Tony Wilde. It is a moment where the masks of social standing and carefully maintained identities begin to slip, revealing the messy, uncoordinated reality underneath. As the dust settles from this chaotic climax, the true nature of the adventure is finally revealed. It turns out that Beatrice Blair has been the architect of much of this madness. She admits that the Turkish tale, the identity of Miss Arkwright, and the various high-stakes incidents were not just random accidents or external conspiracies, but a grand, orchestrated social experiment. Beatrice was testing the people around her. She wanted to see who possessed true character and who was merely playing a part. She was looking for a man who could navigate both the performative, often deceptive nature of high society and the gritty, unscripted reality of true adventure. Lionel, having survived her whirlwind of tests and navigated the dangers she placed in his path, realizes that his affection for her is not just a romantic whim, but something absolute and real. The story concludes with a sense of resolution and a shift in momentum. Beatrice and Lionel prepare for marriage, moving from the chaos of the experiment into a more stable, authentic partnership. The other characters also find their footing. Henry Brown finds a balance between his cautious nature and his new romantic life, and others manage to break free from their previous social or domestic constraints to claim a sense of agency. When we look back at the story, it becomes clear that the central theme is the tension between performance and reality. Almost every character is acting in some way. Beatrice acts on a grand, manipulative scale to find truth. Tony Wilde acts out his boredom through sensation. The social structures themselves act as a stage for people to play roles they didn't choose. The book suggests that true identity, the things that actually define us, is often only revealed when the script is thrown out the window. It is in the moment of crisis, when the performance of being a gentleman, a wife, or a socialite fails, that the real person emerges. This brings us to the idea of the test of character. The novel posits that stability can be a mask, a way to hide our true selves or to avoid the work of being a person. It is only through sudden, unscripted adventure or unexpected crisis that we are forced to show who we actually are. For Robert Hedderwick, the crisis is his own domestic stagnation. For Lionel, it is the literal danger of the espionage plot. In both cases, the disruption is necessary for their growth. We also see a fascinating exploration of class and agency. The characters who find the most significant liberation are those who move outside their prescribed roles. Henry Brown, the cab driver, uses his hard-earned stability to pursue a life of passion. Robert, the submissive clerk, uses a sudden burst of reckless courage to demand autonomy. Even the wealthy Tony Wilde seeks to break out of the cage of his own boredom. The book suggests that agency, the ability to act upon the world rather than just reacting to it, is the ultimate prize of any true adventure. There is also a subtle but powerful use of symbolism in the way the book handles the new age. The introduction of the aeroplane is particularly significant. In a world of rigid, Victorian-style social structures and traditional modes of transport, the aeroplane represents a disruptive, modern force. It is something that cannot be easily controlled or predicted by the old rules. When Robert uses it to bluff his way into independence, it signals that the old ways of managing people and social roles are being superseded by a faster, more unpredictable reality. Ultimately, the gay adventure, a romance, is a story about the transition from a performative existence to an authentic one. It moves from the staged, often hollow movements of high society into a place of genuine commitment and purpose. It suggests that while life may often feel like a series of roles we are expected to play, the real adventure begins when we finally step off the stage and face the unscripted truth of who we are.